This is the original podcast edition of The Guild of the Cowry Catchers by Abigail Hilton, now part of the complete Pirates of Wefravain series. The books are available as audiobooks, ebooks, and paperbacks. This podcast originally aired from 2010 to 2014. Stick around after the story for commentary from me, the author, more than a decade later. The Guild of the Cowry Catchers, a novel of pirates and Panamindorah. Written and narrated by Abigail Hilton. Book 2, Flames. Warning: this novel was intended for people who shop in the grown-up section of the bookstore. It is not intended for children or young teens. If you need to ask whether you will be offended, you probably will. Episode 10.
Hi, I'm R.E. Chambliss. You can find my podcast novel, Dreaming of Deliverance, on iTunes and at podiobooks.com. It's a story about trying to break free, both from evil, terrifying creatures and one's own limitations. And it takes place in two very different worlds. So, once you've caught up with Gerard, Silvio, and Morchella, give Dreaming of Deliverance a try. You won't be disappointed. Previously on the Cowry Catchers podcast, Silvio convinces Morchella that searching for Gwaine on Lecklock is useless, and it's better to try to trap him at the rendezvous on Magus Minor. Morchella agrees, making thinly veiled threats about what will happen to Gerard if they do not catch Gwaine. While discussing tactics, Gerard learns that Silvio was once hired to kill Leopard, the Magian king, when Leopard was still a young prince. Silvio failed. He believes Leopard's father ordered the assassination, but does not know why. They stop on Hapleg en route to Magus Minor and visit an Ocelon named Lou, an apothecary that Silvio has known for many years. In spite of her genial manner, Silvio assures Gerard that she is one of the best poisoners in Wefravain, and he orders a small, expensive item from her, which he will not disclose to Gerard. On the way back to the ship, Gerard tries again to convince Silvio to leave Wefravain with himself and Thessalin. Gerard tells Silvio that Morchella killed Malpin. Silvio is furious. He seems to believe that Gerard is lying in order to get him to assist with their escape.
Chapter 24. Jealous.
Regulated game species on Magus Minor. Fawns, including Shavier, Zeds, and Gazumel. Nons, including Selkies and Cowry Catchers taken on the island or reef. Hoofed animals, including Pegasus, Zebra, and Gazelle. Certain pod animals, including foxes, ocelots, leopards, winged wolves, and lemurs. See the quarterly game charts for seasonal bag limits and prices. Also be aware that species not here listed may become subject to regulation without warning. Notice from the gamekeepers of Magus Minor.
Silvio spent the whole of the evening meal talking to Basil and ignoring Gerard. Afterward, Gerard was pretty sure they went off to Silvio's cabin for the night.
Are you trying to get back at me? At yourself? Or are you just trying not to think? Surely you can't suppose you're making me jealous.
They sailed the following afternoon. Gerard was unable to learn whether Lou had procured Silvio's rare item, or whether Basil had been able to contact the Nightingale. Silvio was as distant as Gerard had seen him since Hullavaris. He did talk and joke with Gerard in public, but he did not confide in him, did not tell him his plans, and he kept his cabin door locked. Gerard felt hurt and frustrated. He told Thessalin about Lou and about Silvio's reaction to the truth about Malpin.
He thought Morchella saved him from that brothel, but she saved him the same way she saved me from the spiders, at a high price. Malpin was the only adult who was ever kind to Silvio as a child, the only person who ever made him feel safe. Silvio never mourned him properly because he was never sure Malpin was dead. Morchella did that to him, Thess, She just left him to search and hope and search for years. I don't understand why he's so loyal to her. He can't really think I would lie about this just to manipulate him into helping us escape.
Thessaline was quiet for a while. Finally, she said,
I think your first reaction was correct. If he believes you, then he has to believe the Malpin died because of him, and he'll say that it's his fault, Gerard. Even though it isn't, that's the way he thinks. He was 12 years old when he met Marcella, and he's been terribly abused. She was the only stable part of his life for years, and the choice to be loyal to her has become one of his basic assumptions. Mostly, he feels his life has been better as a result. Admitting any part of that might have been a mistake is extraordinarily difficult for him.
On the third night out from Haplag, Gerard was on deck listening to Thessaline play her harp and watching a few of the off-duty sailors dicing in a corner. Basil came strolling over to lounge beside him, invading his personal space as usual. Gerard inched away.
It is so easy to make you uncomfortable, Gerard. Actually, it's dull because there's no challenge. I don't know what Sylvie sees in you.
If I'm so dull, why don't you go away?
Good question.
Basil watched the sailors dicing, called a few words of advice. Finally he said, in a low voice,
What did you do? I haven't seen him like this in a while.
Gerard glanced at Basil and finally noticed that he had a slightly black eye. Basil shook his head.
Those dreams of his, look, I am perfectly happy if he wants to use me to get back at you. But I did mention what I do to you if you really hurt him.
Gerard felt a wave of exasperation.
I was trying to help.
Basil looked almost sympathetic.
Yeah, I've been there.
No, you haven't. You take advantage of his weaknesses and all his worst insecurities. The fact that your behavior makes him panic should tell you something.
Basil's lip curled.
Oh, the prince has come to tell us scoundrels how to behave. What makes you think we need you to fix us?
He turned and stalked away. Thessaline had stopped playing. Gerard glanced at her and saw that she was talking to Silvio.
Well, at least he's talking to one of us.
That night in their room, his frustration boiled over again.
I know he's hurting, and it's not his fault, and it's not mine either. I've never lied to him. Thess, he's mocked me in the past because I have such a difficult time lying, even when I want to. How can he convince himself I'd do it now?
Thessaline shrugged.
Anyone will sell you for the right price,
she quoted. Gerard shook his head.
Maybe he really is beyond fixing.
Give him time. We've asked a lot of him this summer. An awful lot, Gerard. Maybe this was too much too fast. We can't leave until spring anyway. Perhaps by then he'll have time to sort things out.
Alcere seemed to be the only person pleased with the situation. Gerard spent the better part of several clear fall days with him, flying, occasionally bringing back interesting edibles from the islands they passed, and sometimes hunting or fishing. Gerard felt a little guilty that he'd neglected Alcere recently. It had been a while since they'd done any flying just for fun. Gerard was somewhat alarmed to discover that Alcere had been spending time talking to Arundel, something Gerard would have noticed if he'd been paying any attention.
He's not a bad sort,
said Alcere one day as they fished on a little numerary.
just unhappy. I think he'd help us kill Silvio and his slimy pirate boyfriend.
Gerard was momentarily speechless.
Alcere, I don't want to kill Silvio. Or even Basil. Usually.
Alcere snorted.
Gerard, Silvio treats you as though you were some kind of fond servant, or worse. Do you know what the sailors say about you? Even about Thess? I thought you cared about honor.
I do, but I also care about doing the right thing. Silvio is an extraordinary person who's overcome a lot. If being his friend means that ignorant shouts think badly of me, so be it.
You want to think well of everyone. Give everyone a chance. But Gerard, you've given him a chance, more than one. He's making a fool of you. He doesn't want help. He wants to be a scoundrel. He's proud of his nasty reputation. He corrupts everything he touches. He's like something you stepped in on a filthy street and now you can't wipe the smell off your boots.
Gerard stared at him.
Alcere, This doesn't sound like you. This sounds like something you heard from someone else.
Alcere shrugged with his wings.
Arundel doesn't like him. He likes you, though. He'd serve under you, Gerard.
Gerard felt a chill.
Of course he likes me. Morcella likes me right now. She gets into his head and tinkers. Arundel probably hasn't got a thought she didn't put there.
Alcere looked uneasy.
He was her lover once. She's a goddess, Gerard. At least she's female.
She's a monster.
He looked hard at Alcere. He hadn't told him everything that Morcella had done in the detail that he'd told Thessaline, or even Silvio.
Maybe I should have been more forthright. Alcere, she can look through Arendel's eyes. She can hear things he hears. You haven't been telling him any of the stuff about Thess and I running away, have you?
Alcere thought for a moment. He actually had to think. Gerard felt ill. Finally, he said,
No, I didn't.
Gerard let out a long breath.
Alcere, I'm sorry I haven't been around much lately. I didn't mean to leave you alone. I'll try to do better.
He told Thessaline about their conversation that night, and she looked deeply troubled.
Gerard, this is always going to be something of a problem. I'm not sure Alcere will forgive Silvio. I thought for a long time he wouldn't forgive me.
Forgive you?
She smiled faintly.
I never talked to you about it. I didn't want to upset you.
Gerard felt as though a little piece of his world had fallen in. Or maybe he'd just looked at something he'd been trying to ignore.
Talk to me about what?
Thessaline drew him down to sit on the bed beside her.
Alcere resents me just a bit, Gerard. He's mostly gotten over it now, I think.
Gerard didn't want to understand, but he did.
You had a place with power and authority, and so did he. And then I came along and upset all that. I took you away, at least in his eyes, set you adrift in a dangerously uncertain world under the authority of Shelts he considers your inferiors. Alcere values stability and safety and order. He's good at protecting you, and he loves you. And Gerard, this is important. He can't be angry with you. It's not just his personality, it's part of his training. He directs his anger at other things.
Like you. Thess, I'm so sorry.
He thought of that terrible night on the Fang, when he and Alcere had gone searching for the buoys during the storm in the Small Kingdoms. Alcere had wanted to take him off the ship before it foundered, and Gerard had asked how he could think of leaving Thessaline.
I'll come back for her,
Alcere had said.
Would you really? Not that there would have been time.
Now that he thought of it, there'd been several instances like that.
Why did I never question them?
Thessaline patted his arm.
Don't fret, Gerard. I was never really afraid of him. He behaves that way because he loves you.
That's not love. That's something else.
I think he's accepted me now as part of you, or at least something permanent and unchangeable. But Silvio is another matter. Your honor is something Alcere thinks he needs to protect. Rumors that seem to threaten that will make him angry and bitter. Also, you spent time with him when you didn't have either me or Silvio to talk to. Alcere misses you.
That's no excuse.
They were quiet for a while. Then Thessaline cleared her throat.
And speaking of jealousy, I was talking to Silvio yesterday while you were fishing. Talking about his childhood and his early days as an assassin. And I think I figured something out.
Oh?
Gerard shifted on the bed, pulled her down beside him.
I think,
said Thessaline, laying her head on his chest,
that he might be a tiny bit jealous of you, or Morcella's affection.
Gerard was taken aback.
Thess, he knows.
He knows, yes. He knows she's dangerous, that her lovers sometimes come to bad ends, that he's lucky she has never taken an interest in him. He knows that, but I think he feels hurt. I think he's been half in love with her since he was a boy. He takes her lack of interest as one more piece of evidence that he's something dirty and unlovable.
Gerard grimaced.
She likes to cause pain. I've told him that. She ignores him because she knows it hurts. She pays attention to me for the same reason.
Thessaline nodded.
Silvio has a hard time believing anyone would want to be around him just for his company. He's always searching for ulterior motives. If not sex, then he assumes you must want other favors or need his skills.
Sometimes I think I've convinced him that's not true. And then I think he talks himself out of it. He wakes up the next morning and says, "How ridiculous that I could have believed anyone loved me," and we're right back where we started.
You've kept him a little off balance for months because he can't figure out what you want. Now he thinks he knows, and he's both relieved and disappointed.
Gerard put his arms around her and kissed her hair.
Let's just leave. Take the meerkat, sneak off in the night. Forget Silvio. It wouldn't be the first time.
Think we'll get good at sneaking off in the night?
I'll sneak anywhere with you.
Her voice turned serious.
Do you really think you could do it?
Gerard sighed.
I don't know. It would be a terribly hard crossing, and if a storm caught us, we'd probably die. Every day that passes makes those storms more likely. Also, if Morcella decided to send wyverns after us,
They'd have no trouble finding us,
Finished Thessaline.
and they'd make short work of us in a small boat.
we could ride Alsair instead of the meerkat. That would help with wyverns, at least make us harder to find. But Alsair can't fly non-stop all the way to the lawless lands. We'd need more provisions than he could carry or money to buy them. Maps, languages we don't speak. It really would be easier with Silvio.
And
Said Thessaline softly.
you'd never forgive yourself if you left him. Not without a more definitive no.
The way he's behaving right now seems pretty definitive.
Give him time. He's trying so hard, Gerard. You should have seen him that night Morcella kept you at the temple. He knocked on our cabin door and asked whether I was awake. I came out and he was just pacing and pacing. He was so frustrated that he couldn't think of some excuse to get you out of there. If you hadn't have come back, he would have been convinced it was his fault.
Chapter 25. A Familiar Face.
Potential dangers on Masia Minor include, but are not limited to, armed fawns and nons, winged wolves, also called bloodbats, several kinds of wildcat, diving spiders, giant sundew and several species of giant pitcher plants, quick slime in the swampy areas, 4 species of poisonous snakes, several topically poisonous plants. Notice from the gamekeepers of Masia Minor.
They arrived in Port Royal on Masia Minor the day before the rendezvous. Silvio had sent ahead to ask for an audience with King Leopard.
They called him Lee when he was a kid,
Quipped Silvio.
although I almost called him Successful Target Practice.
Kid was perhaps the wrong word for Leopard when Silvio had first met him. Leopard looked to be in his mid-40s, and Gerard figured that he must have been no younger than 30 at the time of the abortive assassination. He met them in an informal courtyard in his winter palace, on a hill overlooking the bay. The palace was an odd place. Gerard had an idea that the original builder had designed it as a traditional pleasure garden, much like the Magister's estate in Slag-on-Cerne. The place still had many pleasing vistas, ornamented with elegant screens and adrift in fall leaves. However, another mind had obviously been at work since the building's creation. They made their ascent to the palace in a little room that rose via a system of pulleys and weights, ungainly but efficient. Gerard counted no fewer than 5 different kinds of sundials in the front courtyard, and the fountain had been turned into some kind of water clock. Following a servant into the palace complex, they passed several odd gardens, rows of plants that were neither flowers nor edibles, carefully labeled and staked.
I bet the Royal Library is impressive.
Thessaline said the palace smelled nice. She was dressed in the velvet gown that Silvio had given her, looking strikingly elegant in her trailing sleeves, with her heavy gold hair spilling down her back. Silvio was wearing his Zed-skin pants, frilly white silk, red jacket lined with Pegasus down, and a red hat with an enormous yellow plume. Basil was hardly less garish, in bright green, blue, and yellow.
If his earrings catch the light, they'll blind someone,
muttered Gerard to Thessaline. She gave him a pinch.
Be nice.
Why? He never is.
Basil and Silvio had been flirting shamelessly at every meal since they left Haplag. The kind of things they said made Gerard want to crawl under the table. Gerard had worn his black and silver jacket and boots. After some consideration, he'd also put on the black hat with its silver-dusted plume. He hardly ever wore the hat. It was too fine and too formal, and he really didn't like hats. This occasion warranted it, however, and he wanted to send a message to Silvio.
I still value you and the things you've given me. I'm still on your side.
Farrell and Arundel looked less conspicuous in their wool and linen. Silvio had let each of his lieutenants bring their captains, and Gerard had brought 10 police, so the group consisted of 46 Celts, all fully armed except Thessaline. Of course, the real strength of temple servants lay beneath the waves, but Silvio had certainly not walked onto Masia Minor looking helpless or beggarly. King Leopard was a Grishnard of modest height, classic blonde hair, and small bright eyes. Gerard thought he looked vaguely familiar and wondered whether he'd met him on his coming-of-age tour 11 years ago. The king was dressed unpretentiously, in gray linen suitable to the cool fall air, with just a touch of purple and gold in his collar and sleeves. He had 6 flashily armed guards with him. He'd also brought his son, a child of 3 or 4, looking small and elegant, in clothes matching his father's. The child had 2 male attendants, both slender and wiry and lightly armed. Gerard suspected they were fire dancers, and probably more dangerous than the hulking guards behind Leopard. The child came forward first, and, in a few well-rehearsed sentences, welcomed them to the Magian court, both in the Magian dialect and in common Grishnard. Then, at a nod from his father, he departed skipping for a presumably more interesting part of his day. The pleasantries were clearly over with the child's departure. Leopard gave them a tight smile and said something in Magian. Silvio waited until he was finished, and then said,
Your Majesty, my officers and I do not speak Magian.
Leopard raised one eyebrow.
Don't you?
You remember Silvio all too well, and you don't mind letting him know.
Something else was niggling at the back of his mind.
Could Leopard really have been king during my coming-of-age tour? Did I meet him as a prince?
Something about Leopard's expression in that moment was extremely familiar.
A younger face with the same expression.
Very well.
Continued the king, in common Grishnard.
To what do I owe the honor of a visit from the temple's sea watch and police?
He did not sound like he thought it much of an honor.
We're here to serve,
purred Silvio, in a voice of cheerful ill will.
We were invited by a resistance pirate to rendezvous in the game lodge on Masia Minor tomorrow. This person has captured 50 Sea Watch sailors and claims to be holding them hostage, presumably on the island. In addition, my mistress has expressed interest in this pirate as next month's sacrifice.
Leopard smiled thinly.
I know nothing of agreements made by or with pirates. Surely the Watch will forgive me for not feeling it is my duty to honor a pirate's demands.
Certainly not. However, we do feel it's your duty to honor ours. We need to get on that island, sire, by tomorrow evening. We'll be going with 100 sailors and police armed as per our choosing.
Leopard almost laughed.
It so happens, Admiral, that the hunting register for Masia Minor is full until next red month. We allow only authorized hunting parties, only to quota, and only with the weapons we permit. The island is presently closed. You may take consolation, however, in knowing that no one else, certainly no pirates, could have arrived there in the last 10 days. Not unless they were part of an authorized hunting party. Is the pirate in question a Grishnard?
The pirate is a fawn. Most of them are.
Are they?
Asked Leopard with mock surprise, and shot a look at Basil.
You do know us well,
thought Gerard.
Where have I seen you before? Sometime more recently than my coming-of-age tour.
Gerard couldn't see Silvio's face from where he was standing, but he could tell by his voice that he was no longer smiling.
Your Highness would do well to remember that we are not nobility-seeking sport, but representatives of the gods seeking vengeance. A moon festival sacrifice was stolen from the High Priestess's own sanctuary on Lecklock. The fawn responsible will pay. We do not wish to hunt on Meja Minor for any quarry other than this pirate and those who aid him. We will not disturb your game park.
Silvio said the last two words with all the contempt that Gerard knew he felt for the place. Leopard responded with a mildness that belied his words.
If Her Highness has lost a sacrifice, then perhaps Her Highness should come retrieve it.
Gerard stared at him.
Are you perfectly mad?
Silvio laughed out loud.
Oh, I'll tell her that.
In the meantime, you are welcome to stay and await the reopening of our little game park. Thessalon, I would very much like to hear you sing.
Thessalon had been listening intently. Now she raised her head and gave a shy smile.
I would be happy to oblige, Your Majesty. I believe I sang for you once some years ago.
Leopard smiled, and this time it was genuine.
I didn't know whether you'd remember. I'm sure you sang at so many places. I believe you were a student when you were last here.
And I believe you were a prince.
Gerard glanced at his wife.
Thess, you keep so many secrets.
There are a variety of diversions in town that your sailors may enjoy,
continued Leopard to Silvio.
And I will provide you and your officers with lodging here in the palace if that is what you wish.
At that moment, Basil's earrings really did catch the light, and Gerard caught the flash out of the corner of his eye. A memory stirred. Light reflecting off lenses.
Good gods!
Gerard walked to the front of the group and crouched down beside Silvio.
Send everyone out. We need to talk to him alone, just you and me and maybe Thess. No, on second thought, not Thess.
Silvio glanced at him. For a moment, Gerard thought he would refuse, might completely ignore him. Then Silvio turned to the sailors and police and said,
You heard His Majesty. Go divert yourselves, but be back at the ship by nightfall. Pharrell, be so good as to escort Thessalon to the ship and help her get her harp. I suspect she will want it.
The king looked at Silvio and Gerard with an expression of polite annoyance.
And you, Admiral, Captain, are you waiting for me to escort you to your rooms?
We're waiting for you to dismiss your guards, because I don't think you want them to hear what I have to say.
Leopard laughed.
You must think I'm stupid.
That's exactly what I think of anyone who challenges my mistress,
put in Silvio. Leopard ignored him and looked at Gerard.
Why do you want to speak to me alone?
Because I think your son is causing a lot of trouble.
Listening to The Guild of the Cowry Catchers by Abigail Hilton. Copyright Abigail Hilton. Cowry Catchers is an illustrated podcast. Artwork for this episode was created by Sarah Cloutier. To view these illustrations and to learn more about this world and its author, visit the website at www.cowrycatchers.com. This podcast included the vocal talents of
Nathan Lowell
as Gerard,
Norm Sherman
as Silvio,
Kimmy Alexander,
as Thessalon,
Ryan Stevenson,
as Alsair,
J. Daniel Sawyer,
as Basil,
P.G. Holyfield,
as Leopard Meja,
Rish Outfield,
as a gamekeeper. Special thanks goes to Brian Lincoln, Charlie Blanchard, and Alex Thomaser for helping with the first pass audio editing for this book. You can find links to their projects on the Cast and Characters page, and if you haven't visited that page, you really should. There are portraits of the individual characters, photographs of their voice actors, and extra information about both. Sound effects for this podcast were generously provided by SoundSnap and the Free Sound Project. The intro music for this podcast was Grace by Beth Quist. The outro music is Monsters, also by Beth Quist, both licensed with permission from Magnatune.net. Music for Book 2 of Cowry Catchers included selections from Digital Juice at digitaljuice.com and Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. It also included Beth Quist, Diana Rowan, and Jamie Saber, all from Magnatune.net. All music was licensed and used according to the terms of the websites.
This is a standard copyright now. This podcast is provided for your personal enjoyment only. You can download and archive the episodes for your personal use. You may not re-upload, mirror, or publicly redistribute the audio files, nor can you alter, remix, or create derivative works.
And I'm back. This is 2025 Abby, coming to you with some comments on the episode. I still like that mic drop moment at the end of this one. I got to the end of re-listening to it, and I was like, yeah, I still like the way I ended this episode. Before I forget, Renee Chambliss introduced this one. Renee was a friend I made during Padiobooks days. She was also writing the novel that she mentions at the same time. And Renee became quite a good friend. We went to several conventions together. She was in a bunch of productions that I was also in. And then she plays a major role in Cowry Catchers, eventually. She organized a couple of conventions with a bunch of my friends from this space. So specifically, Lauren Harris, Rish Outfield, Big Anklevich, Marshall from Journey Into podcast, and I might be forgetting a couple of people. But anyway, we all had a great time in Vegas for a couple of years running, going to the New Media Expo convention. Renee was early days here as far as her, I would say her pro-level involvement in voice acting and writing. She went on to become quite an experienced voice actor. She's done a bunch of work for Tantor. I think she's worked with some other audio publishers. I apologize if she's listening to this and she's like, I can't believe you don't remember that I've done work for all of these publishers. I know she's done a bunch of work for different audio publishers and narrated quite a few professional novels. She has a professional recording system now. She has a sought-after voice. But at this point, she was still just kind of learning the ropes and learning about mics and sound equipment and all that kind of fun stuff. I hope Renee and I do some things together again. We've tried to organize get-togethers a few times, and they've kind of fallen through. She had children that were growing up at that point. But I think they're pretty much raised now. She was pretty busy with her family at this point in time and for the last few years. But she is still doing all kinds of creative work, still very active in this space, and may have a podcast for all I know. I don't think so. I think she might have a TikTok. Anyway, Renee Chambliss. Quite easy to find. Like if you Google or you look her up on Audible, she's narrated a bunch of books. And she has a lovely voice. So this episode also had PG Holyfield in it. I mentioned before, PG was one of the people who is no longer alive and died pretty young and tragically a few years after recording this. PG was also an author. He had written a book called Murder at Avedon Hill, which I believe you can still find on Amazon. I believe his kids get royalties from that. But he'd really put his whole heart and soul into recording it. He'd done full cast, and it was really well produced, so it was an inspiration to me when I was planning how I was going to do Cowry Catchers. The only other thing I was going to say about this episode is I have a deep love for stories about hunted creatures. It set in very young. I liked authors like Jim Kedgelgard. A lot of the stories were about wild animals that were often trying to escape from predators or hounds. I liked books about foxes. I love these kinds of stories. And I also, in high school, they always make you read The Most Dangerous Game. I was delighted with this story. And out of this love for hunted creatures and the joy of the chase and the kind of grand tragedy of creatures who are prey and will eventually make a mistake and be caught. Out of my fascination with these kinds of stories grew Meja Minor, which is a kind of most dangerous game sort of place, where the stakes are very high, and the people who are being hunted are people. All kinds of things on the island can kill you. Everything is poisonous and dangerous. And saying anything else would be spoilers. I hope you're enjoying the story, and I will see you in the next episode.
This is Abigail Hilton, and you have been listening to the Pirates of Wefravain saga. Join me on Patreon for early episodes, long-form interviews, forum access, personal updates, and lots of artwork, including maps and species charts. That's patreon.com/Abigail Hilton. If you want the whole story now with no interruptions and some remastering of the early books for sound quality, you can find the entire series at shop.abigailhilton.com, along with all my other novels. The audiobooks are delivered by BookFunnel. Background music was Hidden Sky by Jamie Sieber, licensed from Magnatune.net circa 2014. The Guild of the Cowry Catchers podcast is an audio adaptation of the Pirates of Wefravain saga, written and produced by Abigail Hilton. Original production copyright 2010, all rights are reserved to the author.